Hey, what's going on everyone? Today I'm going to be doing my review of the HTC One M9. So after using this as a daily driver for a few weeks, I'm going to talk about my experience and some pros and cons with this newest generation HTC One. So the first thing you look at when you power on your device, of course, is the screen. Comparing this generation to the previous generation HTC One, the screen is exactly the same. With a Super LCD 1080p HD display at 5 inches, the One M9's display is definitely not a disappointment. With a full HD 5-inch screen, of course you're going to get a really high pixel density. It is at 441 pixels per inch. So when viewing photos or videos and looking at text, everything is going to be really sharp. One design that I don't like, and it's been carried over from the M8, is the bezel on the bottom with the HTC text. If they got rid of that bezel, in my opinion, it will look a lot better. I'm sure you already know that the HTC phones have boom sound speakers, which are definitely one of the best, if not the best speakers that you can find on any smartphone right now. This has very clear mids and highs and has a decent amount of bass. Inside settings, you can change from music mode to theater mode. It basically tweaks around with the equalizer. Now moving on to the design and the build quality. Compared to the last generation, in terms of design and the build quality, it's very similar. Consumers love this design and the premium feel to it, so HTC kept the same design. This has a unibody aluminum finish, and similar to the iPhone 6, it feels just a little bit slippery on the hand. So I recommend getting a case or a skin for it. And unfortunately, when I was filming a video outside, I dropped it on a concrete floor. It wasn't even a high drop, maybe just about waist height. Thankfully, the screen didn't crack, but as you can see, there are some scuffs on the edges and the back. All the buttons are on the right side. It's very easy to reach, but sometimes it's a bit confusing because the power and the volume buttons are side by side. So sometimes when I want to switch the volume, I might accidentally click on the power button. Now let's take a look at the performance or the specs of the One M9. So this has an updated processor with a Qualcomm Snapdragon 810, quad-core 1.5 GHz CPU. The GPU is Adreno 430, and this has 3 GB of RAM. Very impressive specs, definitely one of the top performing phones today. So here's the benchmark score, 4088 for multi-core and 1290 for single-core. This has an Adreno 430 GPU, which provides top performance graphics. So let's run the benchmark. This is 3D Mark. And you can see the frame rate is just around 55-60 frames per second. And the 3D Mark score came out to be 24,618. The score is actually just a bit higher than the Samsung Galaxy S6 at 21,000. A great feature which I personally don't really use because I don't watch TV is that this has an IR blaster. So you can use your HTC One M9 to control your TV as a remote. Another great feature which I personally benefit from is the SD card slot. So if you run out of internal storage, you can insert a micro SD card up to 128 GB, and you can increase your storage to store more files. Now moving on to the battery life, I don't have any issues with the battery on the HTC One M9. Overall, the battery performed really well for me. I can easily get through a full day with moderate usage. This has a 2840 mAh battery. It's non-removable. There are two power saving modes which are actually quite useful, the normal power saving mode and the extreme power saving mode. If I'm low on battery and I turn on the power saving mode, I tend to get a couple of extra hours of usage. Moving on to the software, this is running on Android 5.0.2 KitKat with the HTC Sense version 7.0 skin. On Android, of course, it's quite customizable. If you don't like the skin, you can install launchers, icon packs, different tweaks to adjust your theme. But from my experience, the HTC Sense skin is actually quite clean. I love the UI, the animations, and in settings you get quite a lot customizing options. Now moving on to the camera, last but not least. The camera is actually one of the biggest changes compared to the last generation. It's definitely not as good as other top-end flagship devices out right now, such as the iPhone 6 or the Samsung Galaxy S6. I actually made a detailed camera comparison between these three smartphones, so be sure to check out that video. I'll leave an annotation on the screen and a link in the video description. In that video, the One M9 didn't perform that well compared to the other two. The camera tends to overexpose at certain shots, and it doesn't have really good dynamic range. With 20 megapixels, it is quite sharp when you zoom in. For videos, it does record in 4K, which is actually quite good. If you want to view 4K footage from the HTC One M9, I made a separate video comparing the 4K on the HTC to the Samsung Galaxy S6. So again, annotation on the screen and links will be in the video description. For videos, the stabilization is not that good. Especially in 4K, it's very shaky when you record handheld. So overall, the HTC One M9 has a mediocre camera, but if I had to choose a phone to use based on their camera quality, this definitely is not my #1 choice. So this concludes my video review of the HTC One M9. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for future reviews and related content. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Follow me on my social networks on Twitter and Instagram. Links will be in the video description. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.